Right, so this is part 2 of the 14th of April 2025, and there's a couple of people that wanted to find out who Lisa Pike. So basically what happened was, in 1994 I was getting in trouble at Elmwood School, and because the people were starting on me at that school, I had to change schools. And when I moved to Avalon School in Street, that's where I knew Lisa Pike. Lisa Pike was a very good friend. She wasn't a girlfriend or anything like that, because she wasn't my type, but she was a decent person. And at playtime she'd often hang about with Kerry, Louise and Daniel, talking about celebrity, the Spice Girls, gossip, what they watch on television, and I was sort of just walking around on my own on the playing field when I was at school. My interests are a lot different than Lisa's, so I wouldn't have been into any of this stuff she's into. Apart from animals, I think she likes animals. I do like animals, but again, it's not something I dive into deep. But obviously, if I saw a nice cute animal and it came up and wanted to stroke, then yes, I would stroke it, because I do like animals. Her music is a little bit different to mine as well, and most of her interests, apart from going to the bar, which I've started doing in the last 2.5 months, 3 months, and I do it on holiday. However, I'm still not fully connected to that sort of way of life, and I usually drink a lot when I go to these types of places beforehand. So I saw her once after I left Bridgewater College, because she went to Bridgewater College, and I had to leave Bridgewater College because people were starting on me for no reason, and it got really, really nasty. So in the end I attempted work, and you just had all these problems like, the police had to come, people were just starting on me left wherever I went. And then after that was a time when this Dan Morgan started mugging me. Obviously he doesn't do this today, but when I did see him on an occasion while camping in the area where I used to live at Burnham-on-Sea, there was an alteration or suggestion that was a changeable after I moved from Burnham-on-Sea to Yeovil. All in all, he's changed into a different person today. There's no problems at all, and I've seen him quite a few times at times. Not as frequent as what it was back in the late 1990s, but it's worth mentioning just to state the history of that. Right, so let's get to the next thing. So, as I was saying earlier on, I had to go to the job centre because they're stopping my benefits, and I've got to put in a claim for a new type of benefit. However, it's not guaranteed, so there could be a lot of problems ahead. I just got to wait to hear, and obviously at the end of this month on a Tuesday morning I've got to go there again, because they need to have a group session to discuss the issues that are going to happen there. Since I've been home, things are starting to get nasty again. Right, I'm out the catalytic converter hot point, and obviously here they are, time in the van as usual. Right, so yeah, the setups have suddenly got heavy since around the time I left the job centre this morning. There's just setup after setup, and it seems to be getting nastier and more constructural than what it has been in recent times. The other thing that's occurred today, not while walking to the job centre, but straight after the job centre, all the threats are kicking off, and I'm walking into these nasty types of people. And the other thing that's annoying me is loud boys to erections. But anyway, let's get into the story, shall we? Right, so this is walking back initially from the first time going out. Right, bespoke van. Someone says shot down. Burglary just. I'm being accused of stealing Sam's bike when I didn't do it. Bow whistles. Dangerous paedophile just. You're having a break-in. Stuff lost. Misery said. Then you have molested Sadie just. and you also had this being revved as well. Knifing you down said you're supposed to be with Lisa said, and saying it's supposed to be with negative Lisa. Well, that's not strictly true, because when I spoke to my doctor at my old place and I was discussing things, because obviously, you know, it's the wrong thing to do is to insult a friend, and I was explaining the past and all the rest of it, and the doctor said that what I'm saying is basically true. He says Lisa's not one for you, you know. If you look at the sort of things you're into, the way of life you have, and what you're explaining to me, but the doctor said there's always somebody else out there, there's always somebody for someone. And this goes back to a little bit before actually it might be when I was living in Bridgewater actually. I'm not sure if it was actually the doctor I had when I was living at Burnham-on-Sea. It could be a little bit further back than then, I'm not sure. Anyway, let's get on with the rest of this page, shall we? Things gone Justin, sorry. Wanks a 9 times loud bike. And then obviously the burning's been pretty bad, so this is one of the reasons I've come out, because of the burning problem again starting up. As I go out, there's a lot of trouble. I mean a lot of trouble. So the setups are fair, so they're about average, maybe a little bit heavier for the second time out, that is, but the first time out they were really heavy. Sick cunt needle the fucker, head case, had enough of seeing the fucker, said by I think it's National Tyres. There's been up and down. It's about a year ago when I last had a fret there, but it doesn't really sort of take off that bad. However, it's always around this sort of time of year when things start to kick off a little bit. So it did last year, or when the Savem fret comes in, or the Liam fret, because I am being mistaken as Liam again as well, and this happened today. So obviously a boner, so there's a loud bike timed, red, black, blue over drain cover, sick, disabled, beat up said, and I'm going to get you onto the next sheet a minute while I get it out of my pocket. Right, so the next thing that occurred is a lady aged about 20 was pushing a buggy in my direction, a pushchair, and that pushchair is knife shaped. She wasn't causing no trouble, I didn't even look, I just walked past, but I saw it coming my way. I just want to mention something about these pushchairs. Since around about the year 2008, I've noticed that they've designed all the modern pushchairs to be designed in a way where they look like they're the shape of a knife. And obviously on the more later designs, they're making them even more suggestive in being knife shaped. It wasn't really until around about the year of 2013, maybe just after, where I started noticing it becoming a frequent issue. Most people that push a pushchair are under the age of 30, and that's always been the case. I'm told I'm a sick cunt if I don't go with anyone over the age of 40, and I've not had anyone in my whole life. I'm not being funny, but this is almost twice the age of people that sexually abused me as a child at the age they would have been when it happened. Also, I'm known as a sick cunt if I was to fancy a lady the age if I could stop inhaling fucking flies, the age Jesus Christ would have been when he was crucified. And also, if we go back a couple of years, I was speaking to a lady aged 35 who was telling me that I shouldn't be looking at her profile at that age, even though I was 40 or whatever it is, 41, and saying that you're sad and you should be with people in your 40s, and basically said you're not to read anything at all or anything whatsoever if a person's under the age of 40. So basically I ended up ripping the Bible up and stopped going to these Christian places and even the Jehovah's Witness places, but I still go there for the entertainment, or to speak to friends, or to just on the off chance, to see if there's anyone single, you know, because I've not had anyone in my whole life. But what really pisses me off is I do actually see people in sexual relationships with age gaps more than 20 years difference in age, and it's seen as normal. So why is it that all the people that see me have got me down as a sick cunt if I don't fancy a very old lady? It's not very easy to fancy negative types of attraction. And I'm not being funny, but the people I'm being told to fancy are worse looking than people that sexually abused me as a child. And I wish I'd stop timing fucking loud bikes to erections. That's pissing me off as well. So, anyway, I'm currently at Jack the Treacle Eater, and I need to just stop the recording a sec. Right, there's just been some threats. I'll have to go skip through this when I read out the sheets. But what's happened is a young chap about 16, something like that, has fallen out with his girlfriend and gone for another girl. And there's a bit of an argument, and obviously as he was passing, there was a few things that said. And then I pushed record on this, but I didn't get it in time. Oh, fucking no gunshots. Right, the other thing I wanted to mention is, I'm not saying this to be nasty, but you've got to take into account I've not had anyone in my whole life. You know, most people have had someone when they're a teenager. And when I've spoken to people in the past, especially prostitutes, if we go back at least 10 years ago, but the problem is, even back then, I didn't have the luckiness to get that because they only give blowjobs. If I was to go back, say, 20 years ago, you'd get it all. But the problem is people have changed today, and I didn't think about that back in that time. And they give you sex without a condom on as well, which is known as hardcore sex. And then obviously, if you have a condom on, it's known as safe sex. And most of them will only accept safe sex and not hardcore, because obviously we're in a different time and people restrict themselves differently to how they did, say, years ago. It's not the same anymore. It's okay if you go to a different country, for example, because what they do there is give you the option to have this type of sex, but these types of people are frequently checked to make sure that they don't have any sexual diseases. The thing is, if you want to have sex without a condom on and enjoy sex fully in that sort of way, they will charge nearly double the price of the actual sex that takes place itself. I'm not sure how it works in the UK, because I don't ask the question, because I'm not bothered using dating sites for the last 5 years, because I'm just being messed around and I'm being messed about, and it's been like that all my life. Anyway, the thing is, as I was saying on previous videos, I struggle to fancy the crispy type of flaky skin on a woman, or the dry skin on the face, or the rashes, or the rough skin on the body, and whatever, you know, or the wrinkles or whatever. And I find that very difficult to fancy. And you've got to take into account, if you've not had anyone before, you can't just tell someone that's been sexually abused as a child to go with someone that looks like that. I mean, there are a few people that are sexual looking with smooth skin, even up to the age of about 60 years of age, like that lady I was telling you about that was at Burnham Library, that foreign lady that's got who's cross-eyed. No, I wouldn't mind getting off with her, you know. But the thing is, she doesn't like me because she thinks I'm Savenne. At a later time when I revisited to go to Wellington and said alright to her, she just made a remark and couldn't remember me. But there are people that still have that sexual appearance and smooth skin. So yes, but the problem is, they're all in sexual relationships, they're all very used people, and they're all single parents. So that's why it's making it difficult for me to find someone. And the problem is, when it comes to people that are mentally ill, when it comes to the sexual type that are mentally ill, they're all in relationships. And some of these mentally ill people, especially the young ones, or the ones that are very sexual looking, are in relationships with all age groups, but they're always in relationships with normal people, which is unusual. They don't actually go for people that are mentally disabled. They seem to be in sexual relationships with people that are normal, and some are like rough types of people as well. So you got that. But anyway, let's continue with the setups that were occurring, shall we? Because it's been quite a nasty afternoon. So first of all, I'm mistaken as Savenne. I'm being told I'm having a robbery. Just a simple threat like that, nothing too nasty, but that was what was said. Then another two people passed me saying I'm going to knife the fucker down. The cunt's fucking going. I had enough of seeing him. He's a fucking sicko. And then after that, someone says he's a fucking screwball. I'm absolutely going to fucking smash him to fucking pieces. I'm going to raid his fucking flat. I'm going to absolutely fucking kill him. and say I put the bastard in hospital. So we had a conversation that took place with that in my direction, and this person was mistaking me as Liam. Obviously on the road it wasn't too busy at this section, so you had a couple of cars, a few suggestive, like black, red, possibly black and blue, I can't remember, but it wasn't really that busy, but there was a few vehicles. After that there's another threat, and that threat is to say that I stole Sam's bike when I haven't, and saying I'm having a burglary. And also this person said that it wasn't Reese that raped Grace. So I don't know where that information's leaked out, but these are names of people that have lived in my apartment. So I don't know how that's got out into the public, or why people are saying it, but I'm not making this up. Right, so the next thing that occurs is, oh god, hang on a minute, I want to mention something for just a second. Right, so Grace, obviously I can't say her surname, I can't say anyone's surname that lives where I live, and obviously if I do, I can get in trouble because I'll be breaking violation rules and talking about a person. But as long as it's their first name, I did speak with the mental health team, and they said as long as you don't put people's addresses, surnames or anything like that, as long as you're not referring strongly to that person, even with the first name, you should be alright putting the first name. I can't remember the way she said it, but that's what I was told going back. So yeah, so that lady who's called Grace is actually a very friendly, kind type of person. There was a few issues going back in the early days. I mean, like I said, people have their moods, and obviously she has schizophrenia, and so it's obviously that now and again. I think it's only ever happened twice in mine, so it should be with Lisa, and I think she was joking me on another occasion, saying Savan as she passed me in the corridor. So it's never been nasty. She's a very friendly woman, but now she actually has a boyfriend. I'm not sure what the boyfriend's name is, but she's in a relationship. Anyway, I'm not going to go much else. I'm not going to go much more into detail on that, because obviously it's not my business, and obviously, like I say, I can only give surface information for legal reasons. Right, so when I get to the next section, there's another malicious threat, so I'm getting shouted at again. So this person is saying that I'm being knifed down, and saying that I'm Savan, and I can't remember the phrase that was used, but basically what they were saying, or what he was saying, is that I'm getting a break-in, but it's not stopping. You're getting a break-in time and time and again. It's just going to keep on happening. Saying we're going to make your life a living hell, and saying I'm going to smash me to pieces, basically, and knife me down or whatever. So is that sort of thing? I can't remember the exact wording on the threat, because obviously I've put a piece of paper in my pocket, and it's better for me to just remember, because it's easier, because of how I wrote it down. So anyway, after a few cars it starts to pick up a little bit. It's a bit busy. Someone from the Hollywood Bowl area of Yeovil, as I cross the bridge, and going across that bridge it gets a little bit busy. Not too busy, so say about 50 cars, and it's usually it can be a bit more than that, maybe a bit under 50, so a bit busy. But all in all, the setups haven't really been that bad for this specific time out. But so that person is basically shouting my real name, Justin, saying that he's a child rapist, a paedophile, and being beat up, and saying that he's going to get a robbery. So I had to put up with that. The next threat occurs straight after, when I get through the gate, by a couple of people sitting down on the field doing whatever they're doing, having a snack, a picnic, or family day out, or whatever it is, but roughish type people. And basically I get started on with them, with much similar stuff being said, and to inject me with a HIV needle and to take my life away. After that, while climbing up the hill, there was a couple of more people that were starting on me, and one of them got a little bit agitated and looked like he was going to take chase. Luckily he didn't, but he was getting ready. You could see it on him. He was not very happy, And again, he was mistaking me as Liam, and he wanted to smash the fuck into me, so you had that as well. And then since I got to the next section, there wasn't many threats, and I managed to walk the rest of the way. However, on the farm track, there was a van timed, and also at the catalytic converter hot point, as I name it, there was also a vehicle time there as I go to approach, with the catalytic converter stench occurring. And then obviously after that I start doing these recordings, and obviously we ended it with the person who was on the phone that got a bit unhappy when he passed me. Right, so obviously I've not reached Barrack yet, but I am on the surface or the borders of Barrack, because I'm at Chapter Treacle doing this recording, as I've been doing. So I've changed my plans tonight. Obviously I need to let Peter know about this, because there's two reasons that I've come up here, you see. One is because of the burning problem, and one is because I just need a bit of time to myself, because I'm a little bit stressed out. But considering the threats I've had and the amount of people that started on me, it's probably the calmest I've ever remained in my whole life to the amount of threats I've had. But then again, it could be something I'm taking that's sort of relaxing me. I don't know what it is, but considering I'm not very happy, I'm surprised I'll remain calm through all this that was occurring, because some of it was quite aggressive, and it's only really started today. I mean, if we go back about 3 weeks ago, there's a few bits and pieces when I went into town or was walking back where people were starting on me then, but today seems to have just suddenly, the shit has hit the fan basically, and it's just suddenly kicked off like there's no tomorrow. I didn't get it when I was walking to the job centre. It sort of started after I left the job centre, so I don't know what's got into people, but yeah, they've been at me most of the day today. Even at home, it hasn't been perfect. I mean, there's been a lot of banging, especially this morning, and in a way to say, oh, you're having a break-in, everything missing, or you molested Sadie, or it goes on like that basically. So it's definitely quite an irritating morning as well, and obviously you've got to take into account the burning problem. That's been quite bad this evening, so that's another reason I've left. Because initially I wanted to meet Pete in the garden, you see. It's nice to sit with him and listen to some music, have a roll up or whatever, or a fag, and you know, and because I haven't done that for 2 days or something like that, and you know, I really wanted to do that, but I don't think I'm in the bestest of ways this evening to do that. So when he phones me up later, I'll have to explain the situation, and also there's something I need to pick up, because there's something I forgot to pick up the other day. I'm just hoping that hasn't got nicked from when I last came up here, so you got that as well. So let's hope things calm down for the rest of the evening, and let's hope tomorrow's a better day. And I think I've got off for 3 days tomorrow, so I might see if I can contact Pete and do things with him, because it'd be nice to do things with him, you know, sort of go uptown or whatever. But it's all unplanned. I need to sort of discuss it on the day, or very late this evening when I go back to my place. So I'll be heading back to mine about 10 PM, so and obviously I should probably go to bed. I mean, I had quite a good night's sleep last night. I realised when to stop. I was listening to a bit of music, a bit loud, a bit of jungle, well, not too loud, but you know, you've got a new neighbour called Alan, and obviously I don't want to disturb him either. When I've had too much to drink, you know, especially when it's vodka, I just sort of go on a futuristic musical journey and just get feeling good over it, you know. But because I was cutting down just that little tiny bit, not by much, but that tiny bit, last night I managed to control myself and shut my fucking self up by 1 AM in the morning, so I did that. So anyway, I should keep you updated on the rest of the problems that occur, and I'm not sure what to expect this afternoon, this evening, sorry, because obviously I'm up here later than I usually come up here. But like I said, that's because of the issues that I was telling you about. I'm just a little bit stressed out. But like I said, considering it's been really bad, I'm surprised I kept my cool. I've never had this many threats where I've been keeping my cool over it in the past, where it's been this bad when I've been in this sort of mood. So I'm quite shocked at that, to be fair, because usually I'll make a remark or get sarcastic or something like that, and in the worst case scenario I have shouted back in the past, but I've actually managed to pass with no problems, and I actually feel calm as well, which is not usually the case when this sort of situation occurs. At the moment you've got a crow just saying fuck, ha ha, or stuff like that. So a couple of dog sounds, but they've turned into normal sounds again. Yeah, this animal voice sound lark seems to be increasing at the moment for some reason. If we go back between the year, say 2013, something like that, 2012, right through until till May, I think it was, or April 2022, these animal voice sounds died out completely, almost hardly happening at all. Before that time it was really bad, and some of the people that were my enemies going back in the days of Bridgewater actually stopped their crap with me, and they didn't like me, but they sort of went from enemies to people that would chat to you, or some form of friend in some ways. And some, because obviously some people had a bit of a heart, even though they're rough people, but it was a different type of rough back then than it is today. Some were actually in tears when they heard and said that God's turned against you, with the animal voice sounds that were occurring back at that time of like 2005 to 2008 area. Obviously it was occurring after that, but and it's I think it was 2010 where it was really bad, I can't remember, but it's still occurring even after that time, And then obviously Christmas and the Valentine's period, or the second week in June or whatever of 2016 or something like that, again the animal voice sounds picked up, and they were happening frequently as a loud bike was being tied to an erection as well. But what's happened since April or May 2022, these voice sounds are just suddenly gone off the scale again, and it's all the time, and it's as malicious and as nasty as what it used to be, with even worse content being mentioned at times, like saying that you're going to get burned in the fire of hell, or that you're going to get sexually abused as a child in your next life, and that you're going to get, I can't remember the actual wording of what these animals are saying, but basically saying that something's going to happen to you nasty, violently, whether it be bitten by a snake or a crocodile biting your head off or something like that, or being murdered. But basically that's what these creatures are telling me, or what they're being possessed to say. So basically they're saying that before you reach the age of where you can have sex in your next life, you're going to have your life taken, and they're going to rip you to pieces again in your next life, or you're going to the fire of hell. It's just corrupt. I don't know what's caused it and why it's happening, but it does seem that something has turned God against me maliciously. But you've got to take into account, when I was only 5 to 8 years old or whatever it was, I remember when I was being sexually abused as a child and being forced to enjoy sex with people that raped me as a child. Seagulls and crows going ha 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 ha, and sometimes they're sort of making ha ha Justin ha ha, sort of in that sort of way, and going whoa whoa as I was being sexually abused. But like I said, the Creator God's corrupt. The God's fallen before I was born, as possible. And also another thing I want to mention is I was on the beach with Uncle Rob. I was only about 5ish, maybe, something like that, maybe a bit older, I can't remember what age I was. And a seagull made a really vicious hiss, passing me and my Uncle Rob, and said, "You bastard!" And Rob said, "That's not a very nice seagull, is it?" He went like that, sort of said that to me. And I think he went down to like nearly grab onto the head sort of thing, so it's like diving low at the same time. I mean, I can't remember what else happened because obviously I was very young at the time, but yeah, I'm not quite sure why God's fallen or why this is happening. I mean, I've gone to church, every time I've gone to church I've stopped all this because I found out that the Creator God's turned against me, and obviously taking the piss out of me on sexuality or whatever, and even telling people that want to smash me to pieces or mistaking me as Savan and even these animals are saying that I'm Seven, and saying knife down Seven, there he is, and stuff like that, when that's not my name. So I don't know what is causing God to do this, or what's causing the Creator God to do this, but the 3 years I went to the church, my life got nastier and nastier as I was going. Even every time I went, and even in the church praying or singing, when there's a loud bite tied to erection, a crow go over the top of the church going, ha 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 Justin, or saying something like that. So I stopped all this. I think I mentioned it earlier, I can't remember. When I go to these places, it's more for the friendship and socialising, and I don't go there that often because obviously I'm only going there to sort of look for a partner or stuff like that, because I've not had anyone in my whole life. A couple of people have told me that at the age I'm at, that it is actually serious now. Saying, because obviously I've mentioned that I don't take to the negative type and all the rest of it, which I mentioned earlier on. So a couple of people in authority have said yes, it is getting serious now, but there's still time left. Let's just hope that things can change for you, and hopefully it's not too long. So that's all I can say on that part. Going back to the setups of earlier on, there was a lot of Tesco's vehicles, and there's also a lot of Johnson's vehicles. Now I mentioned this going back a couple of weeks ago, something like that. I said when it comes to Rebecca Johnson, she's not applicable to me, because quite simply, since I was at Elmwood School, I didn't see her until I moved to West Street in Bridgewater, and at the time that I moved to West Street in Bridgewater, she was shouting stuff at me as she passed, which is probably connected to her schizophrenia, but what she shouted was very nasty stuff, which is not what you expect. Michael Cornwall is a school friend. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I can only give surface information for legal reasons or whatever. So I got to give the surname because obviously it's going to be very awkward to explain if I don't. But I'm only going to do it this once, and obviously I'm only going to give surface information this once as well. Well, he's a school friend that contacted me going back a couple of years ago, and we have a couple of phone calls, but I was just disagreeable with some of the stuff he says, or it's like I didn't feel comfortable with his sort of I wouldn't say comfortable as such. I just felt that even though we're not sort of been friends, and sort of suggestions here and there sort of replies that maybe the time really is not to sort of get back to know each other. Sort of just had that sort of feeling, I don't know why, but it's a friendship, and there's a couple of things that I didn't like initially when he first phoned me, and he says how he feels for friends in a certain way. So anyway, I'm not going to go into any subjects or any further than that, because obviously, like I said, because I've mentioned his name, I can't go into anything deeper than that. But in the last several months, possibly 6 months now, we haven't had any communication at all. But it doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered. So, but what I will say is he has a lot of connections with this Rebecca Johnson, and there's a possibility that he's been in a sexual relationship with her in the past. She's never really been a good looker, but she would be someone that I could fancy, going back in the days of when I was living up Bridgewater and West Street, even though people, they say she's not very good looking. I guess it's partly because she had that sort of smooth skin appearance mixed with that sort of facial appearance that's gone into negative attraction in the last 10 years or something like that. Yeah, there's one specific person called Victoria Locke who went to Elmwood School. I think this is due to health issues, I'm not sure, but when she was in her early 20s, she did look like she was my age or older, because she went into negative attraction, or what I see as negative attraction, at a pretty early age, to be fair. Not many people actually look like this at that age, but that's that. So there's not many people to really mention when it comes to that school. You've got Stephanie Gill. I thought the surname was Hill until Michael Cornwall told me when he got on the phone to me. But if I remember, the threats I had in the past, they did say Hill, if I remember, in the threats. So maybe they're getting confused with the surname as well, or Michael's getting confused. But either way, there's been many allegations or stuff that's been mentioned regarding this specific lady. That died off around about 2012-ish, and so did the Sadie threat. Obviously it occurs here and there, but it's extremely rare. But since I moved to Yeovil, taking away the first 6 months or so that I moved there, all this has reoccurred, and some of it's worse than what it was when it initially was occurring, especially the Sadie threat. That's worse than it's ever been at any time in the past, even when it was at its height when I was living at Bridgewater. But there's not much you can do about it. Since the threat of Stephanie died down, I've actually spoken to her in the charity shop and said alright at times. She has a boyfriend, obviously, and she's been with that boyfriend for many years now. I think they're married as well. But obviously she doesn't remember me. But she's polite, though. She keeps herself to herself, or sort of as if she doesn't speak, or just nods her head to say yeah. But I've only seen her a few times, and that was in the time period just before I moved to Yeovil, when I went on that camping trip in the heatwave of 2023. I saw her once then, and she's late going into negative attraction, so she's a few years younger than me. I'm not sure, about 5 years younger than me, something like that. Maybe it's not even that, I don't know. She's only just going into negative attraction now, so she's holding out to quite a high age. However, there are people, like I said in the past, that can reach the age of 40, 50 or even 60 before they develop that negative attraction appearance. I wouldn't say she's the type I fancy as such, but maybe today it's a bit easier because I'm older and I can start to fancy more older attraction. But the thing is, even here, people are taking the biscuit when they're telling me I've got to go with a negative type. If we go back about 10 years ago, I was walking past a YMCA shop in Burnham-on-Sea, and there's a bloke who's a bit older than me with another bloke who's slightly younger than me, and they didn't like me, but what they said was this. They said, considering he's a fucking weirdo or paedophile, I'm fucking shocked that he fancies that Gemma that works in there. And you've got to take into account, this is nearly 10 years ago when this was said. I wasn't happy about the threat because obviously they were calling me a weirdo, but they were saying they were shocked that I could fancy Gemma Ferguson. And then, as she ages and gets older, nearly 10 years later, she sees me as a sick piece of shit, and obviously she's 10 years on top of the age she was back then. So it just makes you wonder then what's actually happening and why people are telling you to go to really negative types or taking a piss out of me. But that's what's happening. And also, the setups going back at that time were implying that I was stupid because I didn't get with her when she was walking into my direction on the beach on a regular basis during the lockdown period. We went into this lockdown and I saw Gemma nearly every single day on the beach. In places it was just her and me on the beach, hardly anybody else going for walks. She said alright now and again, I said alright back, or this and that, And but when we went into the second lockdown, it's just sort of her. There was a couple of remarks she said, Savannah, as she walked past, and sort of was saying, I'm not speaking, or it's like a split personality or something like that, where she could suddenly change or be happy at one minute. It's hard to say because I don't know her that well. I went to leave, basically when I moved to Thorn House in Yeovil, things kicked off at supported housing. I didn't mention this straight away because I wanted to keep my reputation. I thought, for fuck's sake, I just moved from one place and now we've got all this fucking trouble that's occurring here. So I thought, I'm not going to mention anything to staff or anything like that because it would go against me and it would sort of look bad against me, saying it happens everywhere you go. So I waited until a few months went past before I started mentioning these things and whatever. So that was that. Anyway, I was speaking to one of the staff workers. Obviously I can't say who it was, whether it's a he or she, and I can't say whether that person's there anymore. or left years ago or whatever, because obviously I'm not allowed to. But I showed them the letter that I was going to leave in the charity shop, Gemma, asking if she wants to meet up for a coffee or something like that, since we were speaking here and there on the beach, just to try and see if we can get friendship going. But obviously she phoned me up saying that you're a sick bastard, saying you're preying on a lady that's only 30 years of age or 31 years of age or whatever it is, she said, and saying that you're fucking 40 and whatever, something like that. I can't remember what it was. And then saying you just landed your whole fucking life in peril, so I was just going to report you to the police. And said, no, I won't. I'm not going to. I'm keeping that there, saying you don't come anywhere near that shop ever again. So when I went and did that camping trip, I avoided that shop because I didn't want to cause trouble. However, I did see her, or was a lookalike to her, while I was on the beach watching the sun go down in the heat wave of where I was camping in that time period. But she didn't really come over to me or anything like that. She's just sort of hanging around near me. If it was her, that is. It looked like her, but I can't guarantee it 100%. And it was on 2 separate nights of the 8 or 9 days I was camping in total, which is a mixture of Barrow Sand Dunes and Kingscliff Woodland. I had more trouble in that camping trip than I've ever had. You know, when I was camping, for the several months I was camping before I moved, which was also the same sort of places, I managed to camp with hardly any problems. This time I had to move the tent almost every single night because of trouble. And there's also been police where someone went into an argument because they were after someone called Savem. But on that occasion it looked like they were looking for a different Savem, because when I walked past it looked like this person who had an argument that was speaking to the police was okay with me, because the police were wondering what I was doing up there. So I said I was camping because of the heat wave, I can't take the temperatures in my place. And I said I also had an appointment I had to go to. The police were happy with where I was camping because they told me that you're in an area where there's not going to be any people. You're saying you're away from, you know, people, you're away from your playing areas or children or stuff like that, and said as long as the farmer doesn't tell you to get off, then everything's okay. And then obviously he said if the farmer does tell you to get off, then obviously you have to go, you have to do what he says. And I said that's not a problem. And then obviously the police officer said, well, he said this, he said, I don't mind you doing it. I mean, we don't really like people camping because it's not acceptable. You're supposed to go on a proper camping site. But because of the reason and the situation and what you've been saying, the police officer was fine with it, and said because of the type and the area that you chose as well, they said, and there was no more issues with that. Anyway, going back to this Gemma, she's the same. Just supposing it's not going to happen because she doesn't like me and I don't want to cause trouble, and nothing's going to happen anyway. And obviously she's getting older, and as you get older you go into negative attraction, and she's just starting to develop that negative attraction look, which I don't take to. Some call it homosexual attraction, or some call it you know, aging, but whatever you want to call it, I don't take to that. I prefer to go with a female that looks like a female, basically, that has the same type of skin a female of a quality, good looking age should have, you know. But I'm not allowed that. I've been told I can't, because people are arguing with me saying you've got to go with a negative type because of my age, being 43 coming up 44. Anyway, if my mum and dad were still together, it'd be exactly the same age gap as if I was in a relationship with this Gemma. Obviously, like I said, it's not going to take place. But going back to the lockdown period, when we came out of the lockdown period, I was quite shocked that the initial setups, because these setups pretty much went into violent setups, and they were tripled, if not a lot heavier than that, and just got a lot nastier. So it didn't last long. They were making the suggestion that you're really stupid if you're not in with Gemma, or you don't ask Gemma out, or stuff like that. And then they started making suggestions on the Daily Mirror newspaper and stuff like that, or applying stuff on the internet or whatever. But the problem is, they didn't wake up to this issue or didn't realise that Gemma is not one of those that accepts age gaps. Later on they found out, and then they started making suggestions like on the Daily Mirror, like the upside down Daily Mirror sign on the Daily Mirror, applying suggestions to apply this Gemma Ferguson on in other places, and then you had the Ukraine war and whatever, and Russia and all that coming after that. So that would have been sort of, just as that sort of came in, it would have been that sort of time period. But anyway, as far as Gemma is concerned, I'm not going to go into causing trouble. I'm not going to speak to her. I'm not going to try and do this or do that, because obviously it would cause trouble, and I like to keep friendly with people even if they don't like me. You know, it's as simple as that. I'm not one for stirring trouble or trying to upset people. I like to try and get to know people or whatever, but if they're not happy with it, I accept it. You know, I might not like accepting it, but you've got to play by the rules. You know, you've got to treat people with respect. You know, and obviously that's how I do it. And that's, so if she doesn't want to speak, she doesn't want to know me, that's fine. So if I see her in the street, it'd be just like bygones, unless she says alright, of course, and I might be able to stretch to that. But that's not going to happen, because obviously she's made it clear she doesn't want to see me again. So I'm just going to leave that there, and that's the end of that section. Right, so it's a little bit later than anticipated, because obviously I did a few recordings mentioning several different subjects, and now obviously I'm going into the barrack direction, and also it started to rain very lightly, so again I didn't check the weather forecast, but let's just see what happens, I guess. Right, there wasn't many setups on the road actually when I walked from Jack the Treacle to the graveyard. I think it's just one white car and 2 threats, and those 2 threats were to shoot me dead, mistaking me as Savannah, and an argument coming from another house window which I couldn't make out clear because obviously the window was shut. You did have a bonfire as well, which I saw, but that's not a setup. And obviously a cat was meowing to say, going, how? Obviously it doesn't mean it, but it's the way that the sound came out, and I think it's a cat I've stroked in the past when it's come in the graveyard. I'm a little bit pissed off at the moment, because what happened when I was in the graveyard? Right, so basically, I was sitting on the bench, and there was 2 teenagers, 2 girl teenagers, aged about 13, 14. Well, they went to sit on the seat over the other side, no problem. After that, I picked up my bag, and I forgot that I left my baccy on the bench. And as I went to go to the bottom part where the church is to sit down there for a bit, I went back up after they left, and they took my baccy. But not only that, as they were passing me in the graveyard, they were saying in like a kiddie accent and laughing about it. They were saying sick cunt, stabbing with a HIV needle, paedophile, and then saying being smashed out. So I'm not exactly very happy at the moment, because I only bought that baccy yesterday. It cost me something like 28 quid or something like that, because they were charging more than usual. They put the price up, or just because it's an expensive garage. So it's probably about £25 or just under £25 left in that fucking pouch. And obviously I can't go up to them and ask them if they've taken it, because obviously one, they're gone, and the other reason is you can't just go up to someone who's a child asking if they've taken your pouch of baccy. So I've just chucked away just under 25 quid. Right, so I'm a bit annoyed because they've deliberately caused the weather to rain because they need it to fucking rain. I've just had 2 shots of vodka, I want to do a walk, and I need to drench the ground so that I get wet. But tomorrow, it will be a blue sky, sexy sunny day, violating me with sexual curses. Anyway, as I leave the graveyard, firstly it's a red car, a grey car, a 1960s minibus looking van, which is yellowy orange colour, or orange or whatever the colour is. And it's also sexual looking. Then you had a white car, a white sexual car, and then the purple sexy car. Obviously the government need to do this, or the creator God needs to do this, but they time a train. After that my penis shoots up, so there's an air shattering 10 times loud bike, and now they're controlling all the traffic on the road to be as busy as they can put it around me. It's not busy, but I'm not in the best of some moods for it today. Right, so for the last few minutes I've just been pissing about, timing loud bikes, 10 times loud, or whatever, to my penis shooting up. I don't know why they need to do it. I don't know why the Creator God needs to tell me that my willy should be up over a loud bike. Right, just before that, I shouldn't be mentioning this to be fair, but they shouldn't be fucking setting up fucking cars, or it's coming this way, is it? Cars or vehicles to apply this suggestion. Obviously it's not true because family members don't fall out. But the only one time a car with was basically got my half sister's name on it, followed by the word Turner. And, obviously it's probably someone else's name, you know, the name of a woman, but you know, they wanted to time that. And then they timed the blue guarantee van as well. They can't guarantee nothing. But then again, I will mention something, when it comes to these setups, they're never fucking off the course with that, are they? You know, it doesn't bother me, you know, because obviously what they set up or what they talk about in suggestions of this force that's going against me is full of shit. But, you know, it's irritating when it occurs. And it's not going to stop, it's just going to keep on. I don't know how they get it timed on the nail. I'm not sure whether it's God is doing it, or whether some form of noetic science programming's causing it by the elite or the government or whoever. But whoever's setting it up are definitely corrupt. It goes back to this thing I was mentioning earlier when it comes to these setups. Obviously, just before we went into lockdown, or going into lockdown stages, and when I saw Gemma Ferguson on the beach, these setups were making the suggestion that I'm going to be with her, and that is all going to go to plan to well. And these setups were also suggesting, I might say, I'll say this to rub it in, because obviously what was being suggested is actually true, and what I'm saying is actually true. They were making the suggestion that you paid the price for all the problems that you've done in the past, but the problem is they're accusing me of stuff I haven't done in the past, and they're saying because of this, the best you're going to get is Gemma Ferguson. They're saying at least it's something. But the problem is, they didn't realise that Gemma was going to turn against me, and they're the one that's sort of setting these setups up, telling me I'm fucking stupid because you're saying you're only going to lose out if you don't go with her. How stupid can you get? How fucking... That's what the setups were suggesting. So when they were suggesting this, you know, that you should be with Gemma, or which would have been okay if she did go with me at the time, but then nothing happened, you know, they didn't realise. That just shows you how accurate they are when it comes to their pathetic setups, if it is being caused by some military force or noetic science technology or programming that's messed up. It's just very interesting, you know. And then, like I said earlier, that's when they made the suggestions on the internet that I'm stupid, and they were trying to hint to me as well, you know, go, are you stupid? Go ask her, and so it's making that sort of suggestion. But it all fell through. They didn't realise until later on, and they started making upside down pictures on the Daily Mirror of the actual symbol, just making suggestions that she doesn't like me, you know, and all the rest of it. And then they started pissing about with the Ukraine war and Putin after that, and then obviously the suggestion of Gemma died out in that time period. Also, I will mention this Gemma's not actually been fully single, although it's the suggestion that's being posed or being applied or whatever through time, but I think she's been with someone called Ashley. But the indication's very faint, and obviously unless someone gets to know me properly, or whether, you know, or whatever, then it's not things I really go into or dive into, because it's not my business. I'm going to have a bit of a messed up recording with stuff that I said I've not completed, because the creator is fucking buckled and fucked up, and I can't delete the previous information. And also I'm very tipsy because the bastard is fucking cursing my fucking digital audio recording device so it doesn't delete files, because Jesus wants to fucking start fucking war with disease with me, bastard. Right, this is not the bestest suggestion ever. Well, I gotta mention it, and I gotta mention it in this order, because that's how those people walk to the station. Right, so that's a dark red car, but it's going to sound bad when I say this, and I just want to mention that I'm not making this up. So someone's wearing a t-shirt saying the Messiah, which means Jesus, and what happens by the following person that passes who's in a separate crowd? There's a t-shirt that says psychopath, so that means Jesus Christ is a psychopath. That's very nice to know. I'm gonna 666 on those bins. Oh, we got Satan tonight. Oh, this is a little bit nasty. I don't want to have to put it like this, and it's going to offend religious people, but I can't help the way this is coming out. I'm Yahweh jumper as I was walking wherever. A t-shirt that looks very similar to the t-shirt that says "Just come to fucking pieces." And then what happens after that? A gothic t-shirt. It's like whitish split writing, where it's not like, you know, it's done in a sort of style. Black top with red, and it says "bastards," and the writing sort of goes large to small and back to large again. So that just fucking confirms that Christ has turned against me, or that the Christ is an evil bastard. I'm not making this up. I'm being honest. This is spot on what's just occurred. Right, so I got a wet foot. Well, that's why it rained, isn't it, Christ? Because you need to give me a wet foot. Well, where's the intelligence of that, Christ? Where's the intelligence, you spastic? Why do you need to do that? What's so cheering about it? What's so funny about it? Where's the intelligence there, Christ, you fucking buckled cunt? Been a few threats walking back. Gone being knifed early hours of the morning, said Ashley Wood van timed, 9th of June, having a robbery. Jungle Love, fucking knife him, said. Well, it just explains who Yahweh is, isn't it? Because I said it earlier.